It happened half a century ago. The year was 1965 and the venue was New Delhi. An urgent meeting was taking place called by the Union Minister of Food and Agriculture, Government of India, Mr. C. Subramaniam, and attended by all his senior officers and food experts. The agenda was simple, consisting of only one item. The nation was facing a severe shortage of food grain, and things had reached a point where stocks worth only 2 weeks' supply remained. The situation was grim and drastic solutions had to be found to control it. It was decided to do a recce of the seas in the country's vicinity to find out how many American ships carrying food grain were within approaching distance. The idea was to appeal to the President of the United States to divert these ships to India if the consignee countries could wait a few weeks for the grain. India had been a land of frequent famines and famine deaths. The Great Bengal Famine of 1942-43, which killed 30 million countrymen, was fresh in the memory of independent India. India had been importing food ever since, and the import rose to 10 million tons in 1966, when the country produced only 62 million tons of grain. In 1965, Lal Bahadur Shastri, India's second Prime Minister, appealed to the countrymen to forego at least one meal a week and grow a kitchen garden in every house, including on the terraces. Hence, a group of Indian scientists at Pusa Institute, led by its then director, Dr. B.P. Pal, were frantically searching for alternative varieties that would possess the ability to provide a high yield under an improved agronomy. One of the young scientists in his team, M.S. Swaminathan, had gained some experience of developing the hybrid Indo-Japonica varieties of rice at the Central Rice Research Institute, Cuttack. Dr. Pal asked him to apply his knowledge towards finding an alternative variety of wheat. A defining moment in this search came when he learnt about the availability of Norin-10 dwarf gene available with Dr. Orville Vogel in Washington State University, and the breakthrough he had created in USA with Gaines, a dwarf winter wheat variety.
Dwarf wheat really was found in Japan at a station called Norin Experiment Station by a Japanese scientist, Inazoku Guziana. He is the man who, Gonziro Iniseko, he identified the short varieties of called Norin-10. Dr. Vogel converted it into a variety called Gaines. Gaines is still holding the world record in wheat production. But Gaines, I wrote to Dr. Vogel for seeds of Gaines in 1957-58. Then he wrote to me that his wheat is a winter wheat. That means it won't flower under our conditions. It requires long number of hours of sunlight, 13, 14 hours of sunlight, which we don't have during our winter. Therefore, he suggested that you write to Dr. Norman Borlaug.
Dr. Borlaug was working as geneticist and plant pathologist on a joint wheat research and production program between the Rockefeller Foundation and the Mexican government at the summit. He was breeding wheat varieties resistant to different types of rusts.
In the state of Washington, Dr. Vogel had incorporated those genes into tall winter wheats and reduced their height, and they were serving a useful purpose in the state of Washington, USA, earlier than our spring wheats here. As a matter of fact, the genetic stock that I started with came from Dr. Vogel's, but we incorporated them into the spring wheat.
So I wrote to Borlaug, 1959 or 60, and asked him whether can you give the material. He said, why don't I first come to your country, see your growing conditions, and then I can make up a set of material for you. But I was a junior man. It took about 2 years to get the invitation sent to him. It had to go to head of division to director to some undersecretary in the ministry. Finally, they asked, why do you want this man? Because he was not famous at that time. Don't we know what he is doing? We can ourselves do it.
Thus, it was in 1961-62 that the Indian Wheat Improvement Program, with the help of USDA, received the few dwarf spring varieties from Dr. Borlaug under the International Wheat Rust Nursery Program of CIMMYT. The seeds were just about sufficient for planting an acre, but when the consignment reached the Indian Agricultural Research Institute, even that much suitable land was not available, except a field just vacated by sugarcane under Agronomy Division. This is where the seeds of the Green Revolution were sown. These seeds produced an excellent disease-free crop with profuse and synchronous tillering and heavy yield. The scientists involved in the experiment were beside themselves with joy and excitement. Dr. Swaminathan and other scientists were convinced of the potential of the dwarf wheat.
जौनती से ग्रीन रेवोल्यूशन शुरू हुआ है and I took very active part in that. और ग्रीन रेवोल्यूशन से जो चेंज आया है 50 साल पहले, आपने भी देखा होगा, एक गेहूँ आता था ऑस्ट्रेलिया से, वो खाने के काबिल नहीं था, अगर देखने में भी ऐसा था कि इसका आटा खाओ।
जौनती में पंजाब और दूर दूर की स्टेट से यहाँ सीड देने आए और हमारे गांव से वो सीड खरीद के ले गए। 100 रुपये किलो भी, 10-20 रुपये किलो, 40 रुपये किलो, 100 रुपये केजी तक भी पंजाब का किसान यहाँ से गेहूँ ले गया।
इसी खेती में 1100 मन गेहूँ होता था, सारा घर फुल भर जाता था ऊपर से नीचे तक।
So for the first time, what we call the Green Revolution symphony, everyone, the violinists, everybody playing their own part, but all together to create a symphony came in, and that had immediately dramatic effect.
There was a small conference in Washington, D.C., chaired by William Dowd, the administrator for U.S. aid. Funds had been used by aid in India, but I had never met the people who were involved. At this conference was where the term Green Revolution was first used. It was a small meeting with only about 35 people. And he started the meeting by saying, 6 months ago, we had a similar meeting, and I told you things were beginning to happen. Now, I can say there's been dramatic change. And he said, a green revolution is taking place. It's not a red revolution like the Soviet, nor a white revolution like the Shah of Iran. It's a green revolution based on science and technology.
The inspiration of the Green Revolution is very powerful and very important because it is about attention, a priority, political priority, an economic priority, a priority in terms of investments, in infrastructure, in training, in technology, in water, etc., etc.
Naturally, we all understood that the Green Revolution had also some negative elements in the overuse of inputs, pesticides and fertilizers in particular, and their impact on the environment, and these had to be addressed.
Dr. Swaminathan terms this agricultural pathway as the evergreen revolution. But a revolution has to be nurtured with the life-giving support of the right policies as well as decent infrastructure. Even as the descendants of the original experimenter from the Jaunti village toil in their field, the adjoining field witnesses its crop rotting away for lack of infrastructural and policy support, driving home a disturbing irony. Agriculture goes wrong in India. Nothing else will have a chance to go right.